All right, everybody, welcome back. Music Impossible, lesson 14A today. Little tag on our eighth note lesson. We're going to get into a really quick thing on eighth note rests, and then we're going to get into time signatures as we continue to grow here. And be able to count in different time signatures is important. And so one of the reasons why I really wanted to touch on our rests is because we're going to start changing a little bit how we do that and how we count our rests. So first of all, let's just take a look at some eighth note rests and be very discerning, very careful about where you place eighth rests, or any rest for that matter. Now, here's how we're going to change things a little bit. Eventually, when we count our measures, we're not going to include the rests at all. So to start evolving into that practice, we're going to change how we count a little bit. So we're going to start this measure off with an eighth rest, and we're going to start here. And I don't know, let's write some kind of little melody here. And very simple measure. And we know that the first note of any measure is 1. Now, what we have here is an interesting dilemma because we do not have a note here, and we don't play right on count 1. So what we're going to do for now is when we count our rests, we're going to put them in parentheses, and that's going to let you start to understand that you don't play or sing on that particular part of a measure. So count 1 here is a rest, therefore we're going to put it in parentheses. Now we have our first note here, so what are we going to put for our first note? Well, count 1's already taken. If you remember from the last lesson that we count eighth notes 1 and 2 and 3, and so this first eighth note appears on the and of beat 1. So it's not count 1, it is the and of count 1, so we would put the plus sign there. And now this next quarter note is 2, 3, 4. So that's how we're going to manage our rests for a little while. And then a couple of weeks or a week or so from now, we're going to start taking away those parentheses altogether. And when we're counting our measures, we're simply going to stick with only the notes that are played or sung, not the rests. So if I was to think about playing this, here's our tempo. I wouldn't say the number 1 because I wouldn't play the number 1 if I was performing this music. And it would sound like this. And 2, 3, 4. And 2, 3, 4. And 2, 3, 4. I wouldn't say the 1 because I wouldn't play the number 1. Let's see how that looks in a different measure. Let's start with quarter note here, and then we'll have a quarter rest, followed by, let's just do a couple of eighth notes, all the way down the scale there. So the way that we would do this is because we do play a note on count 1, we could label that number 1 or count 1 because we are playing on count 1. However, we're not playing here on count 2. And so what I would do here is, I have to use a slightly different tool in Sibelius to make this work, is I would put in parentheses count 2, and 2 would go here. Just so it's like a placeholder, just to sort of keep our minds in the right place. I would not say or play the number 2 when I'm counting this back. I can finish this out just like we normally would. So now that count 2 is occupied by a rest, the very next beat would be count 3, and then and 4 and as we finish that measure. So let's put these two measures together. If we're going to count this out loud, it would sound like this. And 2, 3, 4, 1, 3, and 4 and. Now, to help you, you might want to say rest on the rests as practice, just to help keep your brain in the right place. So that might sound like this. Rest and 2, 3, 4, 1, rest, 3, and 4 and. And eventually you want to take the word rest out. Let's construct a couple more options here. Let's try something like this. Now in this case, we have count 1 here, on the downbeat. So we would put a number there, 1 and 2. Now what do we have? Now this 8th rest is on the and of beat 2. So since it's on the and of beat 2, we would put just the plus symbol inside of the parentheses here, like so. That represents a rest. And then this last half note would simply get the numbers 3 and 4 to finish out our 4/4 bar. So that measure, 1 and 2, 3 off. 1 and 2, rest. 3, 4, stop. See what that sounds like with the music playing. Take a listen. Okay. And just so we have maybe a steady beat down here, we can add just all quarter notes down here. Something like this. So now we know where count 1 is. Count 1, 2, 3, and 4 are all the time. Take a listen. And 2, 3, 4, 1, rest. 3 and 4 and 1 and 2, rest. 3, 4, stop. We could also add a click or a drum click down here to make that a little bit easier, but that's the idea, is when we have a rest for our assignment purposes, we're going to go ahead and start putting those in parentheses just to know, I know that you're identifying it as a rest and as a placeholder for whatever beat we're on. So good luck with that. We'll have some repetition with that. We'll put a number of assignments up this week for you to have practice with this and have lots and lots of practice. And so that, it's one of those things I like to say, music theory is a lot like math in the sense that you have to do some repetition, especially when the difficulty starts to increase. And we're getting to a little bit higher level of difficulty with our counting here. And I want to make sure you're set up to succeed.